In 1945, the first general meeting was called where the credit union charter and rule were presented. By 1951, the credit union had granted 460 loans or mortgages for a total of $249,213. By the time the wave of Polish refugees and displaced persons hit Toronto in the 1950s, the work had been done by Father Puchniak, Father Bednarz, and Father Smith. They had created a solid foundation for the parish. The new immigrants, like those in the early part of the 20th century, found their way to St. Stanislaus. All manner of different organizations were set up to help settle the newcomers, all suffering from the hardships of labor camps, displacement, and war. The parish was bursting at the seams, and it was determined that a new parish was needed. In June 1951, St. Casimir's Parish on Roncesvalles Avenue, where many of the newcomers had settled, was consecrated. In the 1960s and 70s, St. Stanislaus was seeing third generations of Canadian Poles. The parish had to adjust to a different dynamic. These were young people who bought into the dreams of suburbia, who married and moved away from the inner city. For many, English was now their first language and Polish was the heritage language. An English Mass was set up in 1982 to meet the needs of this community. Yet the flow to the suburbs continued. This group returned to St. Stanislaus for special Polish Catholic celebrations such as Christmas, Easter, and often to be married here in the church of their parents or grandparents. The parish regained some of its size during the 1990s as a new wave of immigration from the post-Solidarity movement arrived in Toronto and lived in the inner city until they made enough money to buy homes elsewhere. Once again, the parish became a hub of new members and parish activity. The parish sponsored Polish refugee families and helped them settle here. Just as the membership and the organizations grew and changed, so did the physical aspects of the parish complex. In 1910, it was a Protestant church built in the Gothic style with a circular balcony and the organ in front. Helen McLean French had the organ moved to the rear of the church and commissioned the main altar. There are no records who designed the altar, but there must have been a Polish influence, as the architectural style mirrors ones in the Polish churches. The interior has shown the most dramatic changes. There are no pictures of that first interior. The earliest picture of the altar is from 1937, after Father Puchniak's efforts. He undertook a total remodeling. The interior was repainted and the altar was repaired and refreshed. The church was reconsecrated by Archbishop McGuigan on October 17, 1937. In 1938, the side altars were redone by Frank Meek to match the Gothic style of the altar, and remained in place until 1993, when the dark marble ones were brought in. The statue of the Sacred Heart dates back to 1931. The stained glass windows were installed in 1946 after a campaign to have parishioners and organizations sponsor a window. The back or choir window cost $800, the south ones $75 each, and the north ones $90. Today, the benefactor of each window is named on the one they sponsored. In 1960, the church altar area was repainted in preparation for the Golden Jubilee. Later, a new altar was built to face the congregation in response to Vatican II. The pulpit with its stairs was gone, and the communion railing was removed, and the whole front floor was remodeled. More change came under the stewardship of Father Mieczysław Wiański. The altar was painted blue, as were all the Stations of the Cross. The metal railing on the balcony and parts of the pews were also painted blue. The floor by the altar was carpeted in a rust color. In 1992, under Father Janusz Błażejak, the church went through a massive renovation. The altar, the pulpit, and the baptismal font were made of wood, carved by Leszek Celuch, a Polish-Canadian artist from Kitchener. The Stations of the Cross were repainted in pastel colors, although the original ones have been painted in more vibrant primary colors. The records show that these stations were the original ones from 1911 and brought in from Winnipeg. As well, Father Błażejak remodeled the area around the altar and a marble floor was installed. The side altars were also changed. Later, under Father Jakub Schwartz, the whole church floor was tiled and the organ refurbished to its current state. While the exterior of the church has not changed as radically, nevertheless there has been work done. The steeple has been remodeled several times. The entry doors have also been remodeled. The choir's stained glass window received a new treatment where the wood frame was changed to a steel one and donated by Mieczysław Chewel in 1993. Today, the architecture of the church remains unique among other Polish churches in Ontario and is a beautiful place conducive to worship and prayer. For 100 years, the building and the parish have served a community that put down roots in a new country and had faith they could build a life in Toronto. The legacy of St. Stanislaus is great in its contributions to the growth and development of the Toronto Polonia. The church provided a place for prayer and worship in a manner which was familiar to those who had just left Polish lands. The sacraments of the Catholic faith were administered in the same way they had been in Poland. For both the following generations and the newcomers, the parish provided a focal point for their Polish heritage. Christmas, Easter, and special holy days were celebrated with prayers and songs that they had learned from their parents. For example, the Holy Saturday blessing of the Easter basket, the Resurrexia, the Easter Resurrection Mass, brought crowds into St. Stanislaus, even though now many had belonged to Canadian parishes. Even when the Polish language became a distant memory, words like Wielkanoc, Wigilia, Ostatki, Zdrowaś Maria had a distinct and special meaning. They taught these to their children, who knew that they would pass it on to their children. The parish taught values of charity. Most parish groups, such as the Rosary, the Sodality, had fundraising aspects as well as their core prayer ones. Many learned here and went on to other lay organizations armed with the skills which made them successful. This was a place of cultural learning which was passed down to later generations. From its earliest days, the parish provided a venue for theater, music, and dance. The choir, which started in 1911, has turned out soloists like Teresa Klimuszko, who went on to sing, often for free, in other community groups and events. The choir itself continues today as the St. Cecilia Echo Choir and continues to sing at Mass and concerts. For all the pastors and assistant pastors, children and youth were a priority. Here, the need was to become a part of the Canadian mosaic, but also to perpetuate the Polish faith and culture. For Polish culture, language, and literature, there was the Polish school run by the Carmelite nuns first, after 1937 by the Felician Sisters, and after 1994 as part of the Catholic School Board's Heritage Language program. Finally, there was the dancing. Poland has one of the most vivid collections of folk costumes, customs, and dances. Village dances were remembered, and the children and the youth were taught to perpetuate them. Father Muszelski and Paul Dubicki took the group beyond the parish to show off this aspect of Polish culture. They were very successful, as Polish folk dancing has endured into the 21st century with such groups as the Polish White Eagle Song and Dance Ensemble. Perhaps the final and most important legacy is the way the parish has shown itself adaptable to changing circumstances. Different waves of immigrants have been welcomed and absorbed. They have learned how to navigate the Canadian scene and contribute to Canadian life, such as Senator Stanley Hajdasz, who grew up in this parish. The parish has been, as one early immigrant man wrote home, the mother of us all. The success of Polonia today in the GTA is rooted at St. Stanislaus.